Welcome to The Person Across From Me, brought to you by the system. Share your story to empower many.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing good today. Thank you.
That's good. Well, welcome to The Person Across From Me. And today, the person across from me is my loving sister, Dr. Whitehead. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm so glad to be here.
Thank
and I'm
you.
so glad if there was anybody in the world to interview me, it would be you.
Oh, she didn't have to say that. But thank you. I wanted to ask you because you've been through some things in your life. So I want to start with letting you know you're going to be sharing your story under the system. So you share your story to empower many.
Yeah.
So someone has been where you are and probably, maybe they don't see hope. They don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. They don't understand that going through something means there's an exit.
Yeah.
And or they, they're still in the dark, or they might just need to know how you were able to maneuver through some of the hurdles in life.
Yeah.
So let's get to it. So Dr. Whitehead, let's kind of start from the beginning. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself and what we're going to be speaking today about, you overcoming and being victorious and a conqueror?
I am a mother of 3 sons, 20, 22, and 39. And I find myself to be a genuine and authentic person. I like real engagement with people. I like things that impact me in a positive way. And that's what I try to do, is to live a positive life.
Let's start at kindergarten. Can we start there?
We can start there. It wasn't a regular kindergarten class. I had missed most of the kindergarten because I was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, which meant I lost the use of my legs. I had muscle cramps so bad that my legs began to bow, and it became not just painful, but difficult to walk.
I remember when someone would try to pick you up, my aunt, just to embrace you, the screaming and the pain that you were endure as a child. So can you talk a little bit about being in the hospital? You might not remember everything, but, some things that kind of stuck out with you being in a children's hospital.
I did. I feel like I was blessed to be in a room with 3 other young girls. And we made the best of what we had. We would have food fights. I remember Mom would come in and she would be so through because she would have to wash all of us up and clean up the mess because the nurses weren't that attentive to us. I also remember one of the young ladies died during the night.
Okay, when you say young ladies, this was kindergarten, right? So you mean young girls?
Young girls.
Yeah, so this was the kindergarten. This is when you were in kindergarten. So I guess that was around 5 or 6?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the little girls, one of the little kids died because you said
she died during the night. I saw her get up and go to the bathroom, and saw her get back in bed, and she went to sleep, and she never woke up. The nurses didn't know that she was dead. When Mom came in the morning to check on us, she left out immediately and went to the nurse's station. And instead of pulling the young girl out and rolling out on the bed, they rolled us out into different rooms. So I lost the connection with the other girls in the room. I was put in a room by myself.
Oh, okay. So that the death of another young person, as you being a child, how did that impact you?
I didn't understand.
You didn't understand.
I didn't understand
Mm-hmm.
how final death was.
Correct.
You
Yes.
know, I was just thinking, well, maybe she's in a deep sleep, or maybe she just, for some reason, doesn't want to work up. I couldn't comprehend
Yes.
that she had actually died.
Well, I mean, being in kindergarten, that age 5, it's kind of hard to understand
Yes.
death at that time, but to actually have to experience it is on a different level. So,
And it impacted me a great deal. I internalized that because I thought, if she's dead, then that means, are we going to die too?
right.
And so being put in a room by myself,
Mm-hmm.
I was too scared to go to sleep because I thought that I was going to die too.
Did you express this to your mom?
I didn't express it to anybody. I didn't know even how to have that conversation with the nurses or with Mom. I just didn't know how to talk about it.
Yes. Okay. Wow. I'm sorry. I just had to be quiet for a moment because, sometimes we don't realize how things can affect children,
Yeah.
And how they don't know how to ask the right questions. So they internalize that, everything is turned inward.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't understand why that child is happy one moment, sad the next, or acting out, or having a disciplinary problem.
Yes.
I don't remember you having disciplinary problems because I just remember pain.
Yes.
You going through pain. So.
Pain was an everyday thing for
Yes.
me.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that the doctors did so my legs would stop bending is they tied weights to my ankle and to try to keep my bones straight. And so every 15 minutes, a nurse had to come in and sit me back up in the bed because the weights would drag me down.
Wow.
And there are days now, even in my adulthood, I still feel those weights on my leg.
Wow. Okay. Can you talk louder?
Yes, I'm sorry. I can still feel those weights on my legs.
Okay. All right. Wow. So the weights were just, because you were so young. So the weights were, I'm not going to even try to guess the pounds, but they were heavy enough to keep sliding you to the edge of the bed and someone had to keep pulling you back up.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
So how did school fit in to you being sick? Because, there had to be a learning process. You didn't want to miss school. And
when I finally gained the ability to walk again, I wanted to experience everything, especially physical activities, because the doctor said that by the age of 18, I would probably be back in a wheelchair. And so I just felt like I need to do all that I can do before I have to go back to the wheelchair.
Oh, wow. And as your sister, I never even knew that.
Yes. So
the doctors had given you a date as when you were going to be back in a wheelchair.
Yes.
And it was in your mind, I'm going to prove them wrong.
Yes.
But for that to be put on a child so young is kind of disheartening. It's disheartening, but it was a push at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yes, I believe the doctors. Why wouldn't I? I believe the doctors, and it just didn't seem enough time for me to do everything I wanted to do.
Yes.
And part of my mind was thinking, how can you get around in a wheelchair? And how sad you would be stuck to a wheelchair,
Right.
or even walking on crutches the rest of my life.
Because you were already in that setting.
Yes.
So that's what you saw in the hospital, people in wheelchairs and
Yes.
crutches. And from a child's point of view, it was horror. It was like horror, devastation. It was,
Yes.
you know, but the good thing about that is how you wanted to see the other side. You didn't accept devastation. You wanted to push past what the doctor said, and at an early age, you had that godly stubbornness. You know,
Yes.
I don't know how, you know, God's not stubborn, but I'm just saying, you know, you were pushed to just do whatever the doctors say that you couldn't do. So now let's get past the kindergarten. Now we're in elementary school. We're back. We had moved back to Baltimore from Harrisburg. So how was school then?
Well, before I got to school, while I was in the hospital, I just wanted to walk. I knew I could walk. And one day I decided to turn myself around to get out of bed. And I got out of bed and my legs, they weren't strong, but I could bear the weight. And I was so happy that I tried to grab the corner of the bed and end up knocking myself out.
Wow.
I was out cold, and the doctors didn't believe that I could walk. They thought that I tried to get out of bed and I slipped and fell. But I kept telling them, no, I could walk, I can walk, I can walk.
Mm-hmm.
And so that began the progression of rehabilitation for me, because my legs started growing stronger and stronger.
Look at God.
And I didn't need a wheelchair. I did have the crutches.
Yes.
But eventually I didn't need them after all.
So they were amazed, because usually when you do the opposite of what doctors say, they're happy, they're excited,
Yes.
they want to do more. Okay, let's start rehabilitation. Yes. So it wasn't until that point when they said, you know what? Okay, this is not going to go the way we said.
Right.
You know, this is not what we thought.
Right.
You know, God is moving in a different direction, and I'm glad He opened their eyes to see that this is not going to be what you thought it was.
And one strong memory is they called Mom to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted her to see me walk.
Mm-hmm.
And I had those crutches where they grip your arms.
Yes, the braces.
To walk. And Mom was like, come to me. And my legs were still bowed, and I tried to come to her. And to her, I guess that wasn't walking.
Mm-hmm.
She ran out the room crying because I don't know, because I can't say why her, because.
Well, how do you know it wasn't? She was just overwhelmed that you got to that point, because in her mind, the doctors had given her so much bad news.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to come from,
right.
You've given the mother bad news. So when the child says, I don't think it was, knowing Mom, I don't think that wasn't acceptable what she saw. I think she was just overwhelmed, because that part, when was the last time she saw you, up? And even though it was on braces, because of the prophetic, lives that our family leads,
yes.
She saw you in another place.
Yes.
Spiritually, but physically, maybe she did, it wasn't adding up yet. So maybe that, I'm not trying to make an excuse. I'm just trying to come from a different point of view, because I couldn't see our mother disappointed, and that's all you could do. I see her maybe what God showed her, because God will show us things about our children, and what was at present at that time probably didn't match up, but she saw you walking, and that made her overwhelmed, because me and our brother, we weren't allowed to come to the hospital
Right.
to see you, so we didn't know what was going on.
Right.
I didn't have nobody to pick on
Right.
except my brother.
But, I never thought about that mom was overwhelmed. I thought that she was perhaps disappointed because I wasn't walking regular. I needed apparatuses and I needed someone to hold on to. So I thought she was just disappointed.
I don't think, maybe not disappointed, maybe sad, but I don't think she gave up hope. I don't think it was that type thing. Like I said, from a child's point of view, that's probably how it looked because, we're children. So what else do we have to think,
Well, she came back in and she came to me and she said, "You can do it."
There you go. You can do it.
You can do it. And so that
so
was
she saw further than you did.
Yes. Yes.
So she instilled some hope.
Yes.
And as parents, that's what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to give up.
Right.
We're supposed to instill hope. It's an upbringing thing. You don't keep telling your child negativity.
Well,
it's encouragement.
You have to take a step back to see those perspectives.
Yes.
And not be in the moment. And perhaps that's what she needed to do, was to step back from what she was seeing in that moment to get to the place where she could see, you can do it.
This moment. Right. So maybe going out the room was necessary so God could minister to her. She could get herself together and realize, you know what? I got to be strong.
Right.
I got to get back in here and you can do this.
Because the doctors told her I could walk. So in her mind, she was thinking I was walking before all of this.
Okay. So they had, so you think there was a miscommunique from them saying your daughter can walk. And then when she saw the braces, the disappointment.
Right.
Okay. Then I can understand that way too.
Yes.
Okay.
But when I entered school, again, that was always on my mind of one day you're going to be in a wheelchair. You don't know which day it is. And I still had pain in my legs. I still had terrible cramps. But just sitting through school every day made me feel like I belong because I'm not in a wheelchair. And I'm not going back to the wheelchair. I'm going to do whatever I have to do, even though it was so painful to do and to be like other children. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to run on the playground, slide down the sliding board, swing. And I did that, but I did it through pain.
And you know what? It's making me cry a little bit, a lot, actually. But just to know, did your teachers know what was going on with you? I mean, because, they had to have known.
Yeah.
The nurse probably gave them instructions. And, Dad, he was the PTA president of every school that we attended.
Yes.
So I'm sure things, were put in place to help you, kind of. Because you still have to pass your tests. I don't think they were taking account on the pain, because the chairs are wooden, they're hard. Because I do remember you taking pillows to school.
Yes.
To make sure, so we get through 3rd and 4th grade. We're now in 5th grade. And you started playing the violin.
I did. I picked up the violin. I thought it was the best sounding instrument. And I always believed the strings made the music. And not only just the violin, but then I became a track star.
Yes.
A distant runner.
Yes.
I was winning all of these presidential achievement award in gym. I was doing everything like I was trying to compact everything in at every moment, because I didn't know
when
I wasn't going to be able to do it.
And let me tell you, I was so jealous because I could never do those things. I said, you know what? She can run fast. I can run fast. Remember, she can do a flip. I'm going to do a flip. I could not flip. I would always hurt myself. I couldn't hang on those bars. You were very athletic. And I didn't understand why. I said, she can do this and she's in pain. I can't do nothing and I'm not in pain. So, I mean, not that I couldn't do nothing. Pain. I just wasn't athletic. Right. But you being athletic, it was a wow moment because of the pain that you endured constantly.
I'm usually the track star, not just a track star, but tennis. I was the tennis champ when we got in high school. I was so athletic. I was so driven to be athletic because I kept hearing the doctor say, you're going to end up back in a wheelchair. And I didn't want to miss anything. I didn't want to miss being normal. And so pain became a threshing hole for me. And I learned to adapt to pain.
Yes.
And that, to say that to people who live with pain every day, that it's a part of your life when you wake up in the morning, when you go to sleep at night, it's just painful, but you integrate it in your life. And for me, I learned how to do in spite of my pain.
Yes, because, middle school, high school, what about relationships? How were you with the relationships?
I didn't have many relationships because I wasn't secure enough to have it. I didn't know that I could trust somebody with what I've been through and to talk about what I've been through. And so I didn't have many relationships at all.
So you didn't think that they would respect your pain, respect what you've been through and your accomplishments, because we're kids, teens. They can be brutal. They can be brutal. And we did go to a school at that time, where it was predominantly white. And so we did deal with, some threats, prejudices. And then our last name is Whitehead.
Yes.
So we dealt with more prejudices, being Black and African American, called, and our last name Whitehead. So
I was running, we were on practice and we were running distance, a distance run. And I kind of fell behind. And the school that we were on in high school was Kenwood. And this truck came past full of white men. And they slowed down enough to spit on me and to pour beer on me. And all I could do was walk. Well, I walked home. I didn't go back to school. I walked home and I smelled of beer. And people spit just all over my forehead. That was one of the most horrific incidents that had ever happened to me before.
Yeah,
how cruel.
Yeah, people are just cruel. I mean, and as we were growing up as kids, I think the cruelty and the things that we did go through, because we had, even though we were young, we had a relationship with God. Even though we were taught a lot of rules, so it kind of like overwhelmed our relationship. But when we got into the relationship part, we realized we were different.
Yes.
We realized we were kind of like set apart. We weren't like the other people. And people noticed
forced to be reckoned with.
Yes.
When we were together, especially playing games. They would say no whitehead rules.
Yeah, we made our own.
And we had so much fun together that it drew people to our house, and we were called the Kool-Aid House.
Yeah.
Because people saw, like when we were living in Philadelphia, and one Easter, Mom and Dad took Easter eggs and hid them around the yard. And I remember the kids looking over the fence saying, we want to play, we want that. So they were mindful for us to keep us together and to keep us having fun. Mm-hmm. And that's what we did. We had fun together.
Yes, we could make a game, a major game out of a rock.
Out of a rock. Remember the so game? Much fun. You couldn't touch the floor.
Oh, Mom was so mad because we climbed over the counters, the dishes, the refrigerator. We climbed on top of we would slide down the banister because we couldn't touch the floor. She didn't understand. With Mom, we were playing this game, right? And we couldn't touch the floor.
And even in playing those games, I just always felt like I was different, mm-hmm. and that I tried so hard to be a part. Of even with you and George, just trying to be a part, minus the physical ailments mm-hmm. that I was dealing with.
Because we didn't understand pain then. Right. We just understood fun.
Right.
And why can't you be fun?
Right.
And you were different. You actually had a calling on your life very early. Mm-hmm. Very early, God called you into ministry.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
I did. We had been in church all our lives. We were pew babies. We grew up in church. But that didn't necessarily mean that we had a relationship right. with God. We just grew up in an institutional church. Rules and regulations, activities, but didn't have a relationship with God. And I went on this retreat, and the place is called Camp Agape. And that's when I heard the Lord call me. Mm. That's when I heard the Lord gave me purpose to live. Why am I alive? And God answered me and gave me an assignment. And still today, I'm pressed by that assignment.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. You know what? Going back a little bit, you were in the newspaper. You were the first African American in the Baltimore County Orchestra.
To play first chair.
Yes.
That was such a great feeling. Nobody could play until I walked out and sat down and got in my playing position.
All attention, all eyes, and you played the violin very well.
I did, thank you. And my greatest joy was to play with the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra.
Yes.
I loved the violin. But as I got older, I felt like I was missing life because all of the tutoring, the training for violin, I felt like I wasn't living. Mm-hmm. And so I put the violin down to try to have another life. Mm-hmm. I'm so sorry I did, but...
Oh, you can pick it up again. It's a gift. So, all you gotta do is just pick it up again if you feel the need. If you do that, I'll pick up my clarinet. And we'll try to get George with the saxophone, and we'll try to do it all over again. After high school and the mountaintop experience, so when you came back down that mountain, what was your assignment? What was next?
The Lord had called me to be a watchman. Mm-hmm.
Explain what a watchman.
Well, in a sense, it's a prophetic office to stand and see what God is saying to his people and to sound alarms when I see trouble coming. And so a watchman watches. My watch is at 3 a.m.
Yes.
I have a ministry called God's Night School, the fourth watch. And I'm up at that time, frustrated because I can't go to sleep, but coming to the realization that this is the time God wants me to pray and spend time with him. This is the time when I'm up and God gives me revelations and visions.
Yes.
And maximizing that time instead of being frustrated, instead of taking pills after pills to go to sleep. No matter what, I would wake up at 3.
You know what? I can agree with you. I can attest because I was fussing. I was like, Lord, we have all day to talk. I'm open. But you want to wait till 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. And I didn't understand. And he revealed to me about the darkness of how the darkest part of night is not that midnight. It's that right before dawn, how the darkest part of night, that 3 and 5, 3, and he would wake me up and just, I need you to write something. So I can attest, like I said, we have a prophetic family. So that midnight, those dark, and our midnights was 3:30, and everyone else is like.
And I believe that everybody is called to a certain watch.
Yes.
And the times that you're called to watch is where you get your greatest distraction, your maximized frustration, and chaos.
Yes.
And it's because those times that you're supposed to be on your watch praying, the enemy makes it so that you can't even pray because of the chaos and the distraction and the frustration of what am I supposed to be doing right now? You're supposed to be praying.
And some people don't understand when they get like that. It's not time to call that bestie. It's not time to, find something else for you to do, to try to distract you more. It's that time to okay, God, what are you trying to say?
Yes.
What do I need to do? It's like when you said watchman, because that's sticking with me, while everyone is asleep. It's like that soldier that's on the wall, watching while everyone is asleep, because the enemy is constant.
Yes.
He's seeking whom he can devour at all times.
He's moving.
Yes, he's moving.
And plotting and planning him with all of his imps and demons are plotting and planning.
But God is greater than all of that.
God is greater.
And he assigns people for that time of night, because I never really understood until I just had, why you keep waking me up this time of morning,
Oh, I tried to medicate myself through 3 o'clock.
There's some pills out there that will knock out a normal person. But when God calls you,
that pill is not going to work.
It is not going to work.
It is not.
The codeine is not going to, the Dilaudid, the Seroquel, none of those pills are going to work.
It's not going to work.
Everybody else would be, knocked out, asleep, out, or paralyzed, can't even talk, can't even function. I got my pen.
Right. I'm up and I'm cute and I'm walking the floor and I'm praying. I'm down on my face praying. And it felt like a mystery, like, why this time, God? Why this time? And the answer that I got is, you're gifted for this time.
This time. And yes. I'm just overwhelmed because it was a dark season, and we're still in dark seasons.
Yes.
But people have normalized it. People have become used to it.
Yes.
Instead of calling for help, sometimes you have half the trauma on the phone. They're recording it before 911 is even called. Yes. So people have become used to it and not aware that it's a distraction. Is it in Solomon that God talks about the foxes?
Mm-hmm.
The little foxes.
Yeah.
Our pastor was preaching on that. The little foxes, and those little distractions can ultimately deter you.
Yes.
From your pathway. It's like that pebble in your shoe.
Yeah.
You know it's in there, so you're not walking right. You're wobbling. Your pace is not the same because you're trying to get your other foot, one of your feet right because of that pebble. Mm-hmm. So it's like a little fox. So if people just pay attention to those little distractions, those pebbles, because even having faith the size of a mustard seed.
Right.
Can be, you can have a mustard seed distraction,
right.
Something small like that. So let's move on. Let's talk about, so school, then you started going to seminary.
Yes.
So talk about how that went along with, because you're still diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis.
Yes.
Did you have any other illnesses or ailments that came up? And before we go any further, I want to apologize because I didn't realize the pain that you were going through as a child. Mm-hmm. And I know I was somewhat of a bully. Mm-hmm. Not somewhat. Mm-hmm. I was a bully. It's not funny, but yeah, it's not funny. And I apologize because, you didn't, I'm just thinking she doesn't want to play. I'm going to make her play. I'm not going to, and I was leading a different life. I wasn't in relationship with God like I should have been. I was listening to something else.
I was literally sitting at the dinner table and I was in so much pain I couldn't eat. Uh-huh. I moved the plate away and just bowed my head down because the pain was so great in my body. I didn't know what to do. And this is the thing. I kept asking for prayer. I kept praying myself. And I finally heard the Lord say that my grace is sufficient for you. And many people felt like I didn't have faith to believe that I could be healed.
Right.
A lot of people thought maybe she's not praying right. Maybe somebody needs to lay her hands on them.
And that's such Old Testament thinking. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But it's just Old Testament thinking. It's religious. It's, I say people don't believe I'm in pain when I wear lipstick.
Right.
And I say that because they go by appearance.
Yes.
When I showed up one time at church with a cane. So what is that for?
Right.
It's not matching my outfit. It's something that I need. It's a crutch. It's a help. Yes. They don't believe. They don't, they go by your outside. Well, you look fine, so why don't you feel fine?
Right.
So sometimes people just need to step back and just be more empathetic.
Yes.
And just because being on a pain scale of 8, when it's 1 through 10, and if we're 8 all the time, we adjust. Right. Because we still have to eat. We want to dress ourselves. Mm-hmm. Sometimes ego does play a part, I will admit. What do you think?
I think it does because you're forcing yourself to overcome the pain level at a 10. You're trying to show up and saying, this is not going to beat me.
Yes.
I'm going to beat it.
Yes.
And as much pain as I was on, as much medication as I was on, I would get dressed still.
Yes.
And do what I have to do. But one important thing that I want to say is that it's a cycle that you get into. Because there were days that I couldn't walk. I remember I was at work at Good Samaritan and I started having what is called rheumatic spasms. Mm-hmm. And my body started to shrivel up. And I called Mom and she came and got me. She didn't just come and get me, but she carried me from the hospital to the car. Mm-hmm. And I stayed in that position until my muscles released itself. And there were days that the part of the cycle is I would go from being independent to dependency. And that was a long stretch for me. There were days I had to crawl to the bathroom just to go to the bathroom because I didn't want anybody to take me to the bathroom. There were days that I laid in days where I couldn't get up until the rheumatic spasms were over, and going back and forth to the hospital to hear the same thing, to take some more medicine, and depression came with that cycle. I would get very depressed, and I'd question God about why can't this just be over?
Yes.
Why can't I just be healed and go on? And he kept reminding me that my grace is sufficient.
And you know what? Someone right now is going through some type of anguish over rheumatoid arthritis. And this is going to free them. This might even comfort them or give them, you know what? I can get up.
Yeah.
I can get out of this bed. I just need that push.
Yeah.
And this is that push. So I really appreciate you sharing. And like I said, we're over 50 and we're just finding out some things about each other. So sometimes we lack communication during painful times and painful moments. We don't respect sometimes each other's pain or our pain, what we can take. I'm in pain, so I assume, oh, come on, Lisa, you can do this. Or you, Miriam, come on, you can do this. But sometimes we just can't. And ego does play a part. I need some help, but I don't want to ask for it.
I detach myself from the world when I'm in pain, like the pain that is past 10. And I kind of isolate myself.
Yes.
Because of the pain. I don't want anybody to see me that way. And that is ego too. I don't want to ask anybody for help. That's ego.
Yes, because it would bother me. I was like, I know you're in pain.
And I don't want to call nobody crying because it seemed like I would be complaining. And so I just end up just being alone in that cycle.
But it wasn't healthy.
No,
it's not healthy. It'll never be healthy. But like you said, we get to a point where, like you said, we isolate because of pain. Right. Because, people don't, because they're not going through it. It's that person that doesn't have a sinus problem, that doesn't understand why this person has to have the fan on and the heat going. Yeah. So you don't understand why the window has to be up, but the heat has to be on. Right. So you just don't get it because you're not in that position. But that's where the word empathy, attempt to put yourself in that position. Yes.
Try to understand.
Yeah, try to understand. Even though sometimes, people, when they say, I can't imagine what you go through. And they really mean it. You can't imagine. Right. It's that person who's lost their parent and we haven't lost ours. So it's not that we just can't identify that level of pain because of our lack of experience. And I'm going to say lack of because live longer. Yeah. Everything, you end up experiencing some things that you just didn't think that you were going to experience.
And there were times where I couldn't even articulate how painful it was. I was on a retreat and there was those rheumatic spasms again. And I couldn't even get out of the bunk bed that I was in. People had to come lift me. People had to take me to the bathroom. People had to wipe me. Yeah. And I was so ashamed and I was embarrassed. And I never wanted to feel like that again. But you do need support.
Yes.
Somebody that care enough to support you through the cycle of pain, especially when it gets to a 10. And it's about us reaching out to that support group, and not waiting for somebody to call you. Or somebody can discern, I need to call you and check on you to really see how you're doing. And I don't want you to say, hey, I'm fine. You say...
Well, we don't believe you anyway when you say I'm fine. I mean, I can hear, because I'm attentive to voice.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say, oh, I'm good, no.
Yeah, God put you on my heart to call you.
Yeah.
It's for a reason.
Right.
And I know generally the conversation starts off with, hey, how you doing? I'm fine, I'm good. And before
it starts off with a lie.
Is over, you crying at the end and saying, you're not good.
You're not good. You're not good.
Yeah.
And sometimes when not just you, when people say I am fine, just still have that conversation. Don't hang up. Because sometimes, just give me 10 minutes. Talk to me for 10 more minutes.
Yes.
And maybe all of it will come out. Because right now, I just maybe, at that moment. But just linger on. Just linger on with me, hang in there with me for a little bit. And I was thinking about when you said they carried you, to the bathroom. I thought about that story when the man's friends, I'm trying to remember his name, when they lowered him from the rooftop.
Yes.
Just to get to Jesus.
Yes.
And how you need that support. You don't need that friend, come on, you can get up.
Right.
No. I mean, that's not always that push,
I was embarrassed. I think that somebody having to take you to the bathroom, help you wipe and clean yourself is the lowest you could go.
I don't think anyone except children think it's okay. Even if you're doing it, even if a child is past 5, they still have that, can someone come and wipe? But, they just need that, kids don't care, just change my diaper. But as you do get older, you don't want to be a burden.
Right.
That word burden gets in your head.
And that's interesting that you said that, is because when I was in the hospital and I couldn't walk and weights were on my legs, I had to be cleaned because I couldn't get up and go to the bathroom. I had to have a diaper on, because I couldn't go to the bathroom. And it felt like when the nurse came in that this is so disgusting. This is just not cool. The nurse said that?
The nurse said that?
That's how it felt.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That she was disgusted.
I was going to go somewhere else with that. Okay.
That she was disgusted that
yes.
she had to do that, to take care of such an intimate need.
Yeah.
And so that's how I felt as a grown-up, that somebody has to take care of my body.
Yeah.
And I still don't like it. I don't like it at all. And I have to ask my sons sometime to help me.
Yes.
I don't like that, but I don't have another choice to get somebody to help me.
So I'm trying to keep in a timeline, and I know we're kind of skipping back and forth. So let's go to, you got married. And you had 3 beautiful sons. You had 2 sons. You had a son. Let's talk about high school. And you having Dustin.
I had Dustin when I was 18. I just graduated school in June, and he was born in October. And at that time, I thought my life was over. All the expectations of going to college, going to the service, all of these options now slimmed down to one, and that was being a mother.
Was this before or after the mountaintop experience?
This was before the mountaintop experience. And that was another thing. The church people made me feel so bad that I was a single parent, pregnant.
That was that time.
And that impacted me.
And still that is that time. There are still some.
Yeah, because even when I got married, some of the older saints told Rodney, she has a son. As if he didn't know.
Like it was a secret.
Like it was a secret.
Yeah.
Just silly stuff like that. Those little foxes.
Yes.
Like that. And
they were just being religious.
That's all. Mean.
I don't even know.
Mean.
Well, see, I was gonna try to refrain from those words, but
no,
yes,
it
was mean. It was and it was you forgot what you did, type thing, so
put you in the back, shove you away.
No more choir.
No more.
We're put off the choir. You can't participate in functions, but liars can.
Right. Other people that sin that you can't really see.
We see the stomach, so you can't participate.
Right. But you can't.
It wasn't.
See.
Yeah, we weren't on a choir with a bunch of virgins. Let's be clear, frank and precise.
No.
Yes. So
everything from A to Z. We were.
Yeah, and so and they were allowed to stay because that was my gripe because I jumped right in. Right. I really wanted to fight. I was that Peter. Why can't she be on the choir?
Right.
And said whatever I had to say, and God had to correct me. Miriam.
Draw you back.
Right. He had to, put the what is it when you put in the horse's mouth to pull him in the direction?
Right.
Yeah, it was like Miriam. With the reins and everything. Stop it. No fighting in church. You can't say what you want to people in church. Well, can I wait till I get outside, Lord? No. I just want to take up for you.
And I believed them. So I didn't think that I had a calling on my life. I couldn't even imagine because they were that mean to me and made me feel like I was nothing or was ever going to be nothing but a single parent. I couldn't even imagine God calling me.
And you know what? If people would just remember that sex is not the always the reason that people have children. Because God gives life. Yes, no one's having immaculate births. It was only one. But He turns things around.
Yes.
Yes, we had sex, yes. We can all say that because we have children. But because you weren't married, God decided that your son needed to be born.
Yes.
It's always a plan. My pastor preached one Sunday about us being plans. And when you understand that you're a plan, you know what? God put mom and dad together. They were separate entities, separate people in different states or wherever, different parts. And I needed this person to come together with this person. I need you two to get together, come together, know each other, as they say in the Bible. Because I need a Miriam, I need a Lisa, I need a George. I need these watchmen, And if you understand that there's a plan to everything, the judgments would stop.
Yeah.
Because you would understand this is a plan.
Yes.
That 12-year-old girl who gets pregnant, God gave that child.
Yes.
Yes, what she did was wrong, and whoever touched her was wrong.
Right.
But the life produced, people take that for granted. So they, they don't have a child because they don't understand the gift of life. And I'm not trying to bash. This is not a segment about abortions and all that kind of stuff. I just want people to understand it's life.
And I actually told God, I said, listen, there are so many people I know who are having sex and not having
babies.
Why in God's name do I have to be the one? Why do I have to be the one? I know people are doing it. Why? Why, God, did I have to be the one? But Dustin was a blessing.
Yes.
To me, I loved him dearly, and we kind of grew up together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as a single mother of 18, just trying to grow up into a good mother.
Yeah.
That was a challenge for me. I had worked 3 jobs just to support us and keep a roof over our heads.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough being a single parent.
Yes.
But the whole time, God's saying that you have purpose.
And not only that, because I had 3 children out of wedlock, if he gives you a gift, he gives you the means to take care of it. Yes. And sometimes you don't understand it when you're in it. Yeah. But then when you can step out and, wow, they're 5 now, you know. Mm-hmm. Wow, he's 10 now. Wow, he's 18. You know, when you look back and I made it through, you know, it becomes over. You just get, you know, in a different position of gratefulness.
I did, because I realized at every need God provides.
Yes. And sometimes we don't understand it right then and right there. And sometimes we do, and it's thank you, God. But then years down the road, it's a thank you, God. Thank you, Jesus.
How I got over, how
yes.
I got through.
Yes.
Just saying, thank you, Lord. I was thinking the other day when I got carjacked, how grateful I was to God, because that man had a gun to the back of my head. Mm-mm-mm. And all I could say is, really, God, this way. And it seemed like an eternity before I realized the car was gone, he was gone. He could take my stuff, but he couldn't take my life.
Or your peace.
Or my peace.
Because God, let's be clear, it was rattled for a minute. You know, things can rattle you, but there's a place that we can return to. And that's that Christian, that more than a conqueror thing. You know, we can, if it happened to you and if it happened to a different person that didn't believe God, you know, maybe they can't come back. Mm-hmm. But we know how to, Lord, you know, get me to that place where
I had to get there very quickly, because
yes.
When the police asked me where could they take me to, I was closest to church. And so they pulled up, and I'm getting out the car, and the people at the church door saw me. So they were running out as to greet me. Mm-hmm. And I thought somehow they knew that I was in trouble or something had happened. But that wasn't the case at all. They were saying, we're so glad to see you. There's a man on the line. He's talking about killing himself, and we need a minister to talk to him. Before I knew it, I had the phone in my hand, and this man was talking about how bad of a day he was having. And my conviction, I couldn't explain to him how I was having a bad day. I had to talk this man into getting help immediately, just outside of my circumstances. I had to still minister.
Yes, because it's 20 people don't realize, Christian, we don't go to sleep. The spirit never sleeps. You're a Christian. We're on call. We are 24. We're on call. And you had just finished dealing with someone putting a gun to your head,
taking my car, my pocketbook, my purse, my everything.
And there's a man on the phone getting ready to end his life, and you have to talk him out of it.
And I have to talk him out of it.
Ministry.
It's just like, and I know this is a whole nother story. My sons were struck by a school bus, and it was the weekend coming up, and somebody reminded me that I had to go preach, to call and cancel, because I was still in shock trauma with my son. And I went to say, yes, call, But then I couldn't get the words out of my mouth. So I said, wait a minute. And I went into this room and I started talking and crying to God. And he said, nothing has changed. And I took that and came back and said, go get my robe. I'm going to preach this Sunday. And people thought I had lost my mind. People thought I was in shock. But I wasn't. I was very clear with God.
I might have been one of those people.
Go preach. And I did. I went and preached and I prayed. And the thing was, I prayed for healing at the altar. And all these people came to the altar. I prayed for healing. And I just didn't pray for healing for them, but I was praying for my son's healing. And then something in my spirit said, not just your son, but every child that's on a shock trauma ward, your power is great enough to heal all of them.
Oh, let it spill out all through the wings of the hospital, over the beds. Oh, man.
The families, everybody.
Yes, everyone that's the staff, the medical staff.
That's how much I believed in the power of prayer.
And you know what? At that moment, when you put that robe on and left, there probably would have been she would have lost her mind. Her kids are laying here in the hospital. But you know what? God will take care of that. You know what? There's a story in the Bible about Lazarus and how when his sister came and said, my brother is dead. And instead of Jesus rushing to the house, he went the other way. Because it's going to be taken care of. Right. Our minds can't comprehend how is thinking.
It can't. When God said to me, nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed. Because he got that. He got that. As long as we're at that bedside, there is really nothing. All you could do was be at his bedside. Right. Because I know at one point he was unconscious and he was, his brain swelling and they had induced, coma to keep him.
They revived him twice. Yes. Once in the helicopter and once in the trauma. He had stopped breathing and they had to administer CPR.
I was angry when I came to the hospital and I saw a tire print on his leg. The tire print was still there.
Yes.
And just to see my nephew, who was overly active,
yes,
to be in that state, it was disheartening. And of course, I was angry. Where's the bus driver?
Yeah.
I told the police, I got this. I didn't have this. But, you say a lot of crazy things,
I didn't. We actually had a conversation maybe about 5 or 6 weeks before the accident. And she said, tell your sons I can't see them when they cross in the street. You got to tell them. I said, or I'll hit them. And I said, if you hit my sons, I'm going to find you. And it'll be your last day on earth. I said those words to her. So when she hit them, 2 girls had crossed the street. And then they went to cross the street and she didn't see either one of them. And I said, if she did that, I have to live up to my end of the bargain. I wanted to find this lady. I wanted to just beat her down and destroy her. I wanted her dead. I really did. And she met me at school, and the first day I took one of my sons back to school. And she said, do you blame me?
Ooh. Wow. Okay, I'm not ready for this part. Okay, I'm not ready for this part, but go ahead.
I said, the best thing you can do for me is to get away from me. That's what you need to do. And she just kept talking, and I finally had to call my attorney to give her orders to stay away from me.
You had to get a stay order? Wow. I don't even know what to say about that. I can't even begin to try to say what was on her mind. I can't even, all I can do right now is say thank God. Because, I don't mind being there. And usually I'll show up. That couldn't have happened. That wouldn't have went well with me there. And a lot of times you didn't call me.
Right.
It was for good reason. Because I tend to go for the angry part first. I tend to lash before I think.
And that's interesting. Their dad was so angry.
Mm.
And during our depositions in the courtroom, they elected not to use him to testify because he was so angry. They needed someone with a cool head.
Mm.
And I kept saying, why am I the one? I'm just as angry. But when I talk, I was very clear. I wasn't emotional.
Mm.
I just answered the questions the way
and that's
I
what they
believed.
needed.
And that's what the lawyers needed.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was a whole nother monster.
Yes, the anger.
And being in court and listening to how this case was going and it being better. It happened in the county.
That's what they said?
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you some questions without us saying things that could probably get us in trouble, because I know we can't talk about some things that happened. What expectations did they have of them being in that position? Because your other son was injured also, but not as bad as the younger son.
Right.
So, wow. What was the outcome? What was their expectations for this trauma and trial? What was the expectations besides, a monetary thing? What was?
Well, it basically was monetary because there had to be something in place, like a life care plan to take care of all their now disabilities that they had.
Yes, but I know we had a conversation. You were saying they had no great expectations for their future. That's the part I'm talking about.
No, they didn't. They didn't think that one of my sons would graduate from high school. He would just get a certificate.
Or walk properly.
And the other one needed a special school. He had to wear a helmet. He was in a wheelchair one time.
Well, let me, I'm sorry to interrupt, because I just have to say this. We're coming back to when you were in the hospital.
Yes.
And those thoughts that the doctors had placed into your mind. You're now hearing them say things like that to your son.
Yes.
But you're prepared because you had been through this.
Yes.
And so you were able to coach them and say, look, they said the same thing to me, but I walked you in here. So I'm excited. I'm sorry. I went from to I'm excited because I'm thinking this happened to you when you were a child. So you have this experience. God said, you know what? You might not know why you're here right now, but I have a Rodney coming up. A little Rodney Jr.
And I did. He hated that wheelchair.
I know he did.
It was the smallest wheelchair I'd ever seen. And him having to wear a protective helmet and be in a wheelchair. And I'm thinking to God, why and how am I going to get through this?
Ooh.
But in the hospital he was at, Mount Washington Pediatric Hospital, there were other kids that were in a wheelchair. And they were allowed them to race around the circle of the department they were in.
For like rehabilitation purposes, right?
Yes.
Okay.
They were all about rehabilitation.
Yes.
And there were a lot of kids in a wheelchair, and they had activities that made them distracted from being in a wheelchair, like races.
Keeping their mind. And
when we rolled Rodney out into the hallway to see the races, because he is the person that he is. He was like, I'm in this to win. And he was rolling himself, and he got comfortable with being in a wheelchair, because I guess it became a game to him. And they did a lot of those things to help him grow. And They said permanently he would always have a brain injury.
What about his walking? What they say about him walking?
He would eventually walk, maybe with a limp, because his back, the way that the tire ran over him in the back tire, it disaligned his spine. And so we had to get a doctor to align his spine back. And I want to mention Dr. Benjamin Carson, because he was on the team to take care of Rodney. And when they wanted to do surgery to stop the bleeding on his brain, he said, let's not do that. Let's watch and see what he will do himself, because he may not make it through surgery. And I just really appreciated the gift that God had gave that man and the vision to let his body do what it's going to do. And I remember the story of the woman whose son had died, and she was carrying him, she was holding him. And I just kept saying, give him to me. I know what to do. If you give him to me, I know what to do. I can rock him. I can speak healing over him. I can speak to having him have a normal life. Just give him to me so I could do that. And they allowed me to take him and rock him in his arms. And that's what I did. I was praying over him. I was watching him. I was rubbing his limbs where I knew he hurt. And you could still tell in his eyes they were glazed over. So a lot of things he hadn't remembered or could comprehend. But there was one song.
That's what I was getting ready to get to, because one of the greatest moments in my life involved him. Seeing him go from a very active child all over the place to seeing him in that wheelchair, to seeing him with the helmet, to seeing him with the cast. And I'm thinking they probably had to put weights on his legs too. So to see him go through that, but knowing that their mom had this relationship with God that surpassed understanding, and they were being brought up this way. Please tell us about that. I just had to put that, I'm setting it up for what you're getting ready to say. I had to set that up.
We had been playing songs, gospel songs, inspirational songs, melodious songs to help heal him. And I didn't even know that he could retain, because his brain is different now. He's a different person. And I didn't know that he retained this one song. And
what was his age when all this happened?
He was 6 years old.
Wow. Okay.
And he, sitting in a wheelchair, and his head was turned to the side, and he started singing, "An incredible God deserves an incredible praise."
Oh my goodness.
And that shook me to the core.
It shook me too.
Because I don't understand how he knew all the words to it, saying, I had some problems, some great and some small.
Oh, yes, Jesus.
But you being God delivered me from them all. Still can't believe all the ways you made. An incredible God deserves an incredible praise.
Just to hear, I mean, I'm hearing it, again, but it still touches me that a 6-year-old would come from that spot knowing who saved him. Who was keeping him. Who, when the doctors had to revive him, who was still on his side. And he didn't, it wasn't that Job's wife, curse your God, died. Just, mentality, because some of us have that.
Right.
Even as adults. But this child came from that part knowing that it was God who did this for him.
And the part for me that shook me is I had some problems, some great and
yes, Jesus. Because he's 6.
We're saying to ourselves, he's 6. What kind of problems does a 6-year-old have? But it's so, just because they're 6 does not mean they don't have any problems. It's some 6-year-old children out here that don't know where their next meal is going to be. Don't know if mommy and daddy are going to fight. Don't know if mommy's going to hurt daddy or daddy's going to hurt mommy, or is cousin somebody going to hurt me?
Right.
So we shouldn't discount them because of their age or because of their size. But you know what? Let's talk about some victory, because where is Rodney today?
Rodney is in college.
Yes, Jesus.
He is a sophomore, and he is pursuing his passion, which is dance. He's in ballet, he's in tap, he's in hip hop.
Oh my goodness.
He's in contemporary, and he's taking adult psychology because he wants to understand more how the brain works.
Look at him, surpassing all of our understanding.
And expectations, because they didn't believe that he was going to ever be I don't know how other word to say normal.
Productive.
Back to a productive life.
Yes. And he's being a productive member. He's not locked up. He's not in jail. He doesn't have a record. He's pursuing his dream like his mom.
Yes. And his brother also, who they said he had autism. He was on the spectrum. And it was a new form of autism, that he was the first young Black boy to have a record of this autism.
And where is he today?
He graduated this year.
From where?
Summa cum laude from Beacon College with a degree in cybersecurity. And he's now working his dream job as a computer analyst for a big company.
Look at God. Look at God. It can be done. So if you're standing right now beside your child's bed and the doctors are in your ear with some negativity, listen to the voice that's telling you.
Yes.
Things can be changed. Things can be different. There are words in the Bible like now, immediate. So things can happen without process.
Yeah.
It's not always a wait. So I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for your life. I'm so grateful that you took the time out to talk to us and share your story to help another.
Yes.
Where do you see yourself next?
I'm in the place of reinventing Lisa.
You wrote a book. Tell us about the book.
Okay. Called I Come With Instructions. And the basis of the book is getting back to the plan that God has for my life.
Yes.
I took it to if you buy a product off the shelf, there's usually instructions in it, and it tells you how to get the maximum use of this item, or else if you don't read the instructions, it becomes an irrelevant thing just sitting around being a paper weight holder. But with I Come With Instructions, allow me to get back to God's plan for my life, not just how other people treat me, but how I'm supposed to treat myself.
Oh my goodness, I'm just so happy about this, because you're right. It's like when you buy a product, there's a picture of it on the front of the box, or whatever it's in, and that's the expected look and outcome of all the pieces in this box. And if we are reflecting Christ,
yes,
we're supposed to be like the box. This is the box. God is the box. The picture on the box. What's inside of us should when we're put all together, should reflect the likeness of God.
Right. And that plan,
Yes.
how to put it together
Yes.
so that you could get the maximum use
Yes.
and maximize who you are and live in that space.
Yes.
That's why I wrote, I come with instructions.
You know what? I put something together one day and I had an extra screw. And I was like, there's a screw loose somewhere. I didn't put the screw in. And although it looked like the box, it looked like the picture on the box, the foundation and the steadiness of it, I'm about to preach, was out of place. So that so that screw was necessary. So I actually had to go back and take it apart. And that's the part we don't want to do. We don't want to go back and revamp. And so, because sometimes, you know, some deconstruction needs to happen to put that screw back in place. And then now it's not wavering. It's not unsteady. The foundation is sure.
I want to just share this testimony. I was on the couch. I had been on the couch for 3 days straight because I couldn't move. I had a dream that I was in the hospital. And I saw this little girl down the hallway on crutches. And the closer I got to this girl, I realized it was myself. And we embraced each other. Because at the time, I didn't believe anybody could understand my pain, anybody could understand my life. And this little girl needed a hug, and I needed the hug, and we embraced. And I woke up inner healed.
That's that whole. That's that wholeness.
Yes.
Yeah, that's that wholeness.
And I felt like I was complete.
Yes.
I reconciled the little girl in me with pain to the big girl with me dealing with pain, and we brought it together, and we got it together.
You got it together.
Got it together.
Got it together. Yeah, and not only did you write the book I Come With Instructions, you also became a dominant force in domestic violence.
Yes.
You helped women who were in trouble,
Yes.
who people were seeking to hurt, maim, or kill.
Yes.
You would hide them. That was your specialty. And I love telling people that. My sister will hide you. You know, it's like that Rock of Ages cleft for me.
Yeah.
That cleft. People don't understand that cleft is that hiding part where God places you so when the waves come, you're protected. And you were that cleft. You weren't the cleft, but you were you were able to put women in a place of safety. So they would feel safe, not just physically, but, mentally, a whole
name change,
yes,
Social Security change, everything changed to protect this life of these women and these children.
Yes.
I moved somebody to Wyoming.
Wow. You know what? You were also a dominant force in prayer. Good night. Praying. Not only praying, but preaching. Because they had started calling you the woman with the sword.
The woman with the sword.
The woman with the sword. And you would preach. You know what? And being your sister, I was like, I can't hear her preach. I'm not going to be able to do it. But you know what? God spanked me. I got convicted. He said, look, you can't just look at the messenger. Yeah. You have to pay attention to the message. Because, we're close.
Right.
So, sometimes we have an argument. We don't want to hear what each other have to say or whatever. But God let me know. I don't care. You can get a message from a bumper sticker that'll change your life. Yeah. So it's not always stop paying attention to the messenger. It's the message. Those little foxes again. Sneaking in. Those little foxes. So I want to say thank you. And I love you.
Oh,
I'll always take up for you. I'm always ready to be that Peter. And
why didn't you call me?
always. You're gonna be like, why'd you call me? But there was a reason why you didn't call me, because I was gonna come show up with Miriam and not show up, as the godly person that God has, placed in me.
I didn't need that Miriam. I needed
Right, you needed the other Miriam, because the other Miriam was always willing to show up with some mace, a taser, or whatever weapon.
Show up.
Right.
Show up and show out.
Yes. But we thank God that you didn't call me. And I thank God for your life. I thank God that He's changed my life and my anger and whatever issues. So thank you. Thank you so much.
I love you.
I love you too. Thank you.
You're welcome.